was all me, I was the bad guy or whatever, well, put up or shut up now and tell us what you're going to do to make this state better.
They're not doing anything to prevent this.
So they shut down Creative Minds and they reopened the next day under a new license, and they called it Super Kids Daycare Center.
This is how it always works. Small frauds get ignored. Systems protect themselves. And the people asking the questions get attacked.
Venga por mí.
Until the questions get too big to ignore.
And now, if you don't know, now you know.
Welcome back to the Jayrevardo Show, and do we have a show for you today? Do we? Of course we do, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking about Maduro and his capture and how the media is trying to spin it already. We're also going to be looking into The View and how Navarro finally wakes up for a brief moment. And then we'll get into Tim Walz and how he's in deep trouble under a lot of scrutiny, but he has been reluctant to resign. What's going on? The narratives are shifting and the facts are colliding, and we're going to break it all down on the Jayrevardo Show. This is a wild video, this is a wild take, but it's also a wild person. When I saw this on The View, when I saw Jasmine Crockett looking like a yellow canary, when I saw her looking like a canary bird on The View, I said, wow, I have to watch this. She can't be saying anything other than something foolish.
And, you know, I do want to just say this. Everyone wants to talk about how Maduro was illegitimate. As we sit here on January 6th, I do want to be clear. Somebody else was trying to be a Maduro.
I was right. She's here comparing Donald Trump to Nicolas Maduro
Of the United States. Yep. Somebody else wanted to do the exact same thing.
Okay, so I just want to say this. When you talk about success, someone being successful at doing something, where were you? Maybe you were out of the country. Maybe you were somewhere in your own home, under the floor, under the carpet. Maybe you were digging a hole, hiding in that hole. I don't know where you were in Texas. Donald Trump successfully captured Maduro. We captured the one that was bringing harm to his own country and trying to bring harm to the United States of America. Why don't you give him a hand for that? Matter of fact, and this is outrageous. This is unusual. On one hand, we have Jasmine Crockett comparing Donald J. Trump to a tyrant. And then on the other hand, you'll never believe it. You'll never believe it. Navarro is finally waking up. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida, the Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people.
Okay, so I want to say this. I want to say, do you see the passion in Navarro's face? Do you see the passion in her expression of what actually happened in Venezuela? The people that lived in Florida actually lived through that. Some people that live in Florida now actually lived through the regime of Nicolas Maduro. She had one moment of clarity, and this was it.
You know, I live in South Florida.
But are you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can, I think both things can be true.
Okay.
I think you can criticize and ask questions and have concerns about the way it was done and what this means in the future.
Right.
And I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a bitch is out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he has, I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical rule. So for me, I am very disturbed by Donald Trump's words about the opposition.
So she came to the light for a little bit, then she backed up and had to go back to the talking points of The View because she probably will get fired. But isn't it great to hear the truth sometimes? I know the people on The View are excited to hear the truth sometimes. Even though they hate Donald Trump, they all have TDS and they need to get to the same clinic at the same time so they can get the same treatment. But right now, it's a breath of fresh air to hear Navarro tell the truth on The View about how horrible and disgusting Nicolas Maduro is and what he was doing in Venezuela and how he was treating his people. She realizes that. The people in Florida that were celebrating, they realized that, but the only people who seem to not realize that is Jasmine Crockett and the media. They like to spin it. Now, I want you to watch closely how CNN Jake Tapper tries to frame the conversation in the narrative about casualties in Venezuela. And is this operation justified? Now, I want you to watch how toxically CNN tries to drive home a new narrative in Stephen Miller defense policy.
So a source briefed on the Venezuelan operation told me that a handful of American troops sustained bullet and shrapnel wounds, but none are life-threatening. Can you share with us how serious any injuries to American service members might be, and also any information you can tell us about any Venezuelan civilian casualties?
Yes. Well, let me take the second part first.
It's like he's not a
which
news
is
reporter.
that the
He should know that there were no casualties if he's a journalist, but I see what he's doing. He's trying to push and trying to poke, and I get it.
Overwhelming share of casualties and fatalities that were inflicted were against the Cuban guard that had exerted control over the people of Venezuela. So what many don't realize is that for years, Maduro stayed in power through an illicit deal with Cuban communists to provide his security because he didn't trust his own people to keep him safe. That is how much he was hated inside of Venezuela. So what our special forces encountered when they did that daring midnight assault into Caracas were armed Cuban guards, and they sustained massive numbers of casualties. I can't give you an exact number. The numbers that you've seen in terms of the Cuban guards publicly reported are probably lower than the actual number that were killed. To your first question, no, none of the, at least as I've been briefed, none of the injuries are life-threatening. Everybody is stable, and it just underscores the remarkable skill, precision, courage, and capability of our special forces. And I want to just set the table one more time for your audience. I'm sure you've talked about it at length already, but the United States of America launched an assault force into Venezuelan territory, which has sophisticated air defense systems, which has sophisticated surveillance systems, which has weaponry that they've received that can take out planes and helicopters from our foreign adversaries that they've been stockpiling for years in anticipation of the possibility of such an action. Maduro was staying in a military fortress. In other words, since the United States had started amassing this armada under President Trump's leadership and direction, he'd increasingly narrowed the scope of his own movement, and he was sleeping in a fortress. And so we flew into Caracas. These special forces engage in direct gunfire with elite Cuban guards, and every single kill,
Jet Trapper is trying to trap him in any way he can.
Was an enemy kill.
So there were no civilian casualties?
Zero. And he knows that. He's trying to trap him. He's trying to reframe it. But Stephen Miller's not having it.
Well, I didn't see any reports of any civilian casualties. But my point is that in this raging gunfire battle that took place, the point that I'm making to you is no Americans were killed. Because of the planning, skill, and preparation, the enemy sustained massive losses. Not one of our assets was lost, not one of our people was lost.
So let's talk about what next. Delcy Rodriguez was formally sworn as Venezuela's acting president this afternoon. She was the vice president. She described the U.S. intervention as, quote, without a doubt, Zionist in character, unquote. Is acting President Rodriguez someone that the U.S. can work with?
So the acting president put out a statement, I want to say, Jake, it was last night, pledging cooperation with the United States, pledging full and complete cooperation.
But they also just passed a law saying that if you supported the operation against outlawing individuals or threatening with criminal penalties individuals if they supported the operation against Maduro. I think they did that today.
Well, the good news there, Jake, is that nobody inside of Venezuela supported the operation, so it's a law without meaning or effect.
Look, Stephen Miller's not playing along at all. Jet Trapper's once again trying to recreate the frame of the narrative, but it's not working. Roll it. I love it. Love Stephen Miller.
Jake, there's going to be some posturing that occurs when a nation has been so thoroughly defeated in this way. The United States of America, think about this, Jake. The United States of America has encircled this nation for months. One of the largest naval armadas in history has been stationed off its coast. Fighter jets have been encircling the island. We've been engaging in kinetic lethal strikes against Maduro's drug boats and trained Arauco gang members leaving the island. We have launched a complete oil embargo of the ghost fleet, the dark ships. And now on top of that, now on top of all that, Maduro is sitting in a jail cell in New York, as is his wife. So of course there's going to be, this is very important though, of course there's going to be some posturing. Without giving anything away, I want to be very clear. Very clear. The government has sent messages, this is such an important point, Jake, to the Secretary of State, to our senior U.S. government official negotiators. They have sent message after message making clear that they will meet the terms, demands, conditions and requirements of the United States.
Okay.
And I want to be very clear about that, Jay.
So let's the question about who is now running Venezuela is one that even members of Congress who are big Trump supporters say they're not quite sure about. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN's Navarro that he doesn't know what President Trump meant by his assertion that the U.S. is running Venezuela, and he said he needs more information. Can you tell us what the president means when he says, is acting President Delcy Rodriguez in charge? Is she running Venezuela or not?
Well, what the president said is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time.
But
Okay, so basically what Jake Trapper is trying to do is he's trying to create uncertainty. He's trying to create some type of fear around the fact of not knowing what's going to happen next and who's going to be the next person in charge when all of those questions have already been answered. This is what I don't get about CNN and the rest of the left-wing media. They are atrocious when it comes to delivering facts. They can't stand them. They want to divert and create a new narrative. Now watch how the framing shifts completely. After CNN goes after strategy, then MSNBC follows behind them and sounds the alarm that goes scorched earth on something that happened for the good of Venezuela. Okay, so this is Rachel Maddow with his suit on, reacting to Venezuela, calling it an invasion. He's calling it an invasion.
Do you believe they did this Venezuela thing for the reasons they say they did it?
Yes.
They said it was about fentanyl. That was their initial explanation. Even they now acknowledge, though, that fentanyl doesn't actually come from Venezuela. Then they tweaked that pretext to say, okay, it is about drugs, but it's not fentanyl. Okay, maybe that was wrong. It's about cocaine.
Okay, so this is a disbelief used as a device. Roll it.
Yeah, because if one thinks about crusading against cocaine, one definitely thinks about the Trump family. Am I right? But that was an awkward pretext, too, because even though some cocaine does come through Venezuela, experts say that cocaine is generally bound for Europe, not for the United States. So that's kind of a weird thing for us to be all fired up about them in particular. That pretext was then completely blown up anyway when Trump gave a pardon to the former.
What does she mean pretext? Because language matters, and it usually goes to Europe is egregious to me, because if it usually goes to Europe and it somehow wanders to the USA, that's still a problem. We don't want it flooding into the United States of America, whether it's a little bit, it usually happens, or it seldomly happens. Roll it.
President of Honduras, who really was convicted of trafficking more than 400 tons of cocaine, not to Europe, but to the United States. If Trump supposedly cares so much about a foreign leader being responsible for trafficking cocaine into the United States, why did Trump pardon a foreign leader literally convicted of smuggling hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States? Why is she missing the point? He do that if he cares about this, right? Well, he said at the time that he did it, quote, because if somebody sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president. That's what he said about pardoning the guy from Honduras. So the idea that Trump needed to arrest the guy in Venezuela for that same alleged crime.
Okay, so she's no longer doing any journalism, analyst reporting. This is escalation and crashing out at its best.
He pardoned the president of Honduras for that, but he needed to go invade Venezuela to get the president there for that same thing? How do you make sense of that? Maybe the only way to make sense of that is to acknowledge rationally that that is maybe not the real motivation at work for what we just did in Venezuela, right? So what is the real motivation at work? I mean, they've tried a few different explanations when those kind of slid off the slip.
Okay, so I think we get it. They're questioning the motives and they're questioning the outcome of this situation. They're framing this. And they want it to end up being horrible and tumultuous for Donald Trump because it's Donald Trump. Now, while all that noise is happening at the national level, the consequences land somewhere else. like in Minnesota.
Someone ended Governor of Minnesota Tim Walz's political career. Stay tuned.
You know who that
Governor
one
Tim
is?
Walz has dropped out of the governor race. A multi-million.
I like to call him Governor Nick Shirley. Can I call him Governor Nick Shirley? Private eye. No? Can I call him Governor Nick Shirley? I'm not talking to anybody.
Dollar fraud scandal in the state. And we could thank this guy right here, Nick Shirley.
Governor Nick Shirley
ended his political career.
It's a wrap. It's over. Tim Walz has completely found out what happens when you do fraud across the board in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to get right to the video that completely agrees with me.
Governor Tim Walz lashing out at President Trump as he faced the press just a day after announcing that he won't seek re-election for a third term, amid growing fallout from a massive welfare fraud scandal.
Have I been perfect in this? God dang no. I wasn't perfect as a teacher. I wasn't perfect as a coach. I wasn't perfect as a soldier, but I was pretty damn good at all those things. Game's over for him now. It was all me. I was the bad guy or whatever. Well, put up or shut up now and tell us what you're going to do to make this state better.
I can't believe this, Tim Walz. You lied about pretty much everything. The stolen valor. If you do the stolen valor, then I believe you would do anything with anybody, anywhere, anyhow. I don't believe that you would keep it copacetic and keep it straight with the American people. I can't believe that they picked you as a governor, let alone a vice president pick. And plus, you were going to be the first, weird.
And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very...
You said you were... You said you were not going to run. What do you mean resign? You don't have too much longer, Tim. This is testosterone Timmy here.
And to make this state better. And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign?
If I hear one more thing out of Tim Walz's mouth about Donald J. Trump, I'm going to lose my mind. It's not about Donald Trump, Tim Walz. It's about you and the fraud that you did in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is about the Somalians, Tim Walz, and fraud. It's a three-part process. Roll it.
Anytime I get drug into being next to Donald Trump, God help me, I don't want to be judged again.
You're not next. He's not next to Donald Trump. You're way past that. Donald Trump hasn't done any fraud in Minneapolis, Minnesota for the Somalians at all. And I haven't even heard anything about that. Last thing I heard about Donald Trump is he went to go get Maduro.
That guy.
And Axios is pointing out Walz's falls from grace. Alex Thompson says,
Look at
14
this
months ago,
madness.
Walz almost became VP and then flirted with a 2028 run.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now Walz is ending his political career amid scandal, personal burnout, and feuds with former allies, including Kamala Harris. Greg, he made some threats there.
Yeah, he did. Big boy fans.
Me.
Like you've never
like I've never been ridden. Ooh, man, tampon Tim.
What? I love Greg Gutfield. Don't you love Greg?
Is seeing red. You know what the biggest achievement is for him?
I've never been.
Electing Trump. Imagine if Kamala had chosen Josh Shapiro or Harold Ford. Instead, he took that slot and steered that ticket into the sea. You know, when we look at the debt, which is what, $38 trillion, we always talk about spending. But I think what we're finding out that the spending question might be a distraction from the corruption.
So we have spending, then we have corruption, we have fraud, we have emergency funding, we have reimbursements. We have a lot of fraud going on. We can't get distracted on one specific fraud. It's billions of dollars in fraud. Roll it.
Question. If it comes to a point where it's over $1 trillion, $2 trillion, it's not about spending. It's about the fact that we were so focused on spending, they were just stealing our money.
True.
And then they say, oh, we're in debt. Shirley says he's being hunted, and I would take that claim very seriously.
All right, so before we keep going, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can continue to bring you this information that they don't want you to know on the Jay Revardo Show. Now, I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstood when I say this, and I believe that they're targeting Nick Shirley now because you have to watch MSNBC. You have to watch the patterns. These are patternistic people.
Being targeted is, what's his name? Shirley. Don't call me Shirley. These guys and Musk, they've opened the door to something that we haven't really looked at in a while. When you think about Trump getting shot, almost assassinated twice, Charlie Kirk, Elon Musk being targeted, his dealerships, the cars, January 6er grandmothers, parents, Christians, white dudes at work.
That's literally outrageous, egregious, and insane to be an American and to be a human being. to be a human being, acting as such, acting in the way that these human beings act, acting in the way that these people on the left act. These people are acting like wild animals. They're supposed to be somewhere in the Sahara Desert. Roll the clip.
Like Jesse, who's been turned down from so many promotions because
It's crazy.
Of your skin color. You don't think people want Nick Shirley dead?
That's outrageous. Like,
I mean,
that's
let's
outrageous.
be honest.
They probably do want him dead. And the thing about it is, those evil people on that side, I don't know why and where they need to baptize themselves in, or maybe they just need to move out of the country, because in America, what we want is the truth and we want accountability. The people in Minneapolis, Minnesota, they put their hard-working taxpayer money into the building of your extracurricular daycare. It has no kids. It has no playground. You just got fresh tire marks in the snow from hauling in those kids when you were being investigated by Nick and his dad.